It's postseason time in small school football. Jim Rupert, Dave Kane. Let's start with the Friday games. You're going to Vandalia to see Payne and Vandalia. That's a South Central game. They already played once this year.
They played 2 weeks ago, in week 8. And Vandalia, I think Vandalia built like a 20-8 lead. They ended up winning 20-14. They're both 6-3, I believe. So pretty evenly matched game. It's nice to be 6-3 and get a home game, but that's the way this 3A bracket. That's the way it worked out. Vandalia's been a little bit of a surprise team in that conference. They played Greenville fairly close. Well, 10 or 12 points in week 10 or week 9.
Number 1 rated in 3A.
Yeah. So, but it's it's a big rivalry. Payne and Vandalia. Payne's top running back Garrett Claxon had an ankle injury against Vandalia. He sat out most of last week. Al Stupek, the Payne coach, said Garrett should be back for Friday night, so hopefully they'll be at 100%. But it should be, just based on their records, if nothing else, should be a pretty evenly matched ball game.
Geographically, it seems like those teams go back forever and ever and playing each other. That part of the state, the Shelbyvilles and the Paynes and the Vandalias and all those.
Hillsboro and down in the South Central Conference area. Yeah, a lot of rivalries.
Coal miner games.
Yeah, pretty much.
The other game on Friday night is a 2A game at Williamsville. Williamsville got a first place vote in the 2A poll this week, and you can talk about it now or you can talk about it later. That 2A bracket just loaded with undefeated teams.
Yeah, I think ridiculous. In the, I guess you'd say, the upper half or the southern bracket, whatever, 1 through 16, the bracket that Williamsville and Auburn are in, I think there are 5 9-0 teams. And I think there's another 9-0 team on the other side. So it's tough.
You mentioned Auburn and Williamsville, who were ranked in 3A all season. And people kind of wonder about how come they were ranked in 3A and now they're in the 2A playoffs. It's a whole new ball game once the postseason rolls around.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, Williamsville, I think, was number 3 in 3A. And now for this final AP poll, now that they're 2A, they're number 5 in 2A. So
go down a class and go down 2 places.
Yeah. So,
but that's got to do with all the undefeated teams in 2A that were already there.
Maroa, Forsyth, and I think Carmi, which they're 9-0. I don't know how good of a 9-0 team they are, but there's just a lot of. I think Marshall is in that group too. So it's a really tough bracket. Friday night, Gillespie comes to call at Williamsville, and they played each other in the first round a couple of years ago. They played each other some regular season games, like crossover games. Gillespie 7-2. They've had a very good year, big running team, but Williamsville, unless there's a big weather factor or something like that, they're playing at home. Be very surprised if they don't handle the Miners and move to 10-0 and move on to the second round.
All right, let's talk about the Saturday games. We'll start with 1A. Fisher at Pawnee. Mm-hmm. You got to like it when the bunnies come to town.
The bunnies are on their way.
The horse likes it.
The horse and our raccoon friend. Fisher, over in the Rantoul area. I think they're 6-3. They don't score a lot of points, but they don't allow a lot of points either. This is we've had a lot of these rematch type games for the first round, but this is one of those where
first time ever
teams in much different areas. Pawnee's going to be at home. They're coming off a kind of a humbling loss to Riverton. So maybe that kind of gives them some refocus or whatever. They've had a good year. I think I still like Pawnee, playing at home to win that game.
West Central is at home against Toledo Cumberland, somebody else that they haven't seen for a while. That's a pretty good trip for Cumberland, and West Central playing pretty well at this point.
Yeah, they are. They're on I think 5 or 6 game winning streak. Both of their losses. Well, they did lose to Triopia to start the season. That was pretty one-sided. But their other loss to Triopia 1 point. They're just playing with a lot of confidence now. They really are. Nick Graham, brother of Nate Graham, the route coach, has done a really good job at West Central. Right now, I don't know a lot about Cumberland over in kind of that Effingham area, but it's a long trip for them. So West Central is at home, so hopefully they could pull it off.
And a lot of the people over in the western part of the state, small schools, called the first round of the playoffs the West Central, the WIVC Invitational, and along those lines, Route and Triopia play in week 1, and that was a great game earlier this season on a Thursday night. Now they go back at it again in the postseason.
Yeah, although Route has. They lost to Triopia. They've lost like 4 games in a row, but they've lost some, to some quality teams. Triopia is 9-0, ranked number 1 in that final 1A poll. I think Route's looking at this as a chance to start fresh and maybe try to redeem themselves.
They've been good in the playoffs under Nate Graham, though. They have really played well in the postseason.
Oh, they have. 2 years ago, his first year, they knocked off Route. I think in the quarterfinal it was an overtime game after after Triopia had handled him in the regular season. So you never know. Maybe throw the records out the window here.
Okay, let's throw all the cliches in there.
Yeah, I thought I'd try to do that.
Let's go to 2A. Auburn, a perennial playoff team. Westville from the Danville area comes to Auburn to play in the first round on Saturday.
Yeah. Again, as we speak here, I don't know a lot about Westville other than over in that Danville area. Auburn playing at home, 8-1. Their one loss to Williamsville, fairly close game. I think they've kind of got into a more of a confidence level. They lost their quarterback early in the season. The sophomore doing a good job now, and Austin Minch has had a heck of a season. Doing a lot of different things for Auburn. So Auburn, has a pretty good shot, at home, I think, in first round. If they do win, I don't know if we want to go to, Carlinville, Maroa, Forsyth. If Auburn does win, they would get the Maroa Carlinville winner. Maroa ranked first in the state, 9-0. I think a couple weeks ago they really handled Tuscola pretty well. People say this is Maroa is always good, but this is one of their really good Maroa teams. So, barring a big upset by Carlinville, Auburn, with an Auburn win, they're probably looking at having to face Maroa in the second round. I mean, that's another reflection of this really tough 2A bracket.
Yeah, and the other game involving area schools is you got Athens, where they've got to read coaching, and you got Camp Point Central, where they got to read coaching.
Yeah, they're both technically assistant coaches. Joe Reed, the son, is an offensive coordinator for Athens. His dad, Bill Reed, was the head coach for Camp Point Central, now is the offensive coordinator. He's also the principal of that school, so he doesn't have time to do everything. But Bill Reed used to be an assistant coach at Carthage, where Joe played. It's going to be interesting. Camp Point, 9-0. They are a kind of a smash mouth, double tight end, ball control team. Athens is more of they're a little more balanced. It's I haven't seen Camp Point play, but they're undefeated. Another undefeated team in this bracket. Athens lost a couple of late season games to Williamsville and to Auburn. So hopefully they can kind of regain some momentum.
Okay, let's go to the 3A bracket. We already talked about Payne and Vandalia. North Mac goes to Alton Marquette, another South Central team that has done very well this year. A couple losses against a couple pretty good South Central teams.
Right. And it's kind of a matchup of coaches who were former teammates at Hardin Calhoun. J.D. Lorton for North Mac, and Tim Nelson, who's the Alton Marquette coach. They both played for Calhoun back in the glory days. They both like the triple option type of attack, so there probably won't be any secrets. Marquette, obviously should probably be favored at home, although Marquette lost one of their top players, area linebacker and fullback for them, broke his ankle in week 9. So he's a big shoes to fill for Marquette. So maybe North Mac has played really well the last couple of weeks. Maybe they can keep the momentum going, but it'll be tough down at Marquette.
We've got Nokomis and Staunton, a couple area teams playing. You were in Staunton just on Thursday or Wednesday during the day.
To talk to a couple of their players. And Nokomis Staunton is a rematch. They're both in the Prairie State Conference. They played early in the season. Staunton won pretty handily. I think shut out Nokomis. It was early in the season. Since then, Staunton has lost a couple games to quality teams, Auburn and Pawnee, among others. I think you still have to like Staunton playing at home. Nokomis is in that situation. They're 6-3. They got bumped up to 3A this year, partially because they added another co-op partner to the mix, and that kind of kicked them upstairs. But I think their coach Gabe Caesar already said, "Hey, we're happy to be in the playoffs, even though we're 3A." So, but it'll still be kind of a tough assignment for Nokomis at Staunton.
Last 3A game involving area teams: Georgetown Ridge Farm, coached by Josh Cavanaugh, used to be at Springfield High. He goes to Beardstown to play Beardstown, which is kind of flown under the radar screen around these parts. They've got some veteran guys with Carlock and some of that group of guys, some guys that have been around a while.
Right. Yeah. Last year was kind of Beardstown's breakthrough year. They made the playoffs for the first time in several years. They had to play at Williamsville first round. They were in it I think, at least at halftime, and they had some injuries, and Williamsville pulled away. They're 7-2 this year, lost to Knoxville and to Elmwood, two very good playoff teams. Don't know a great deal about Georgetown Ridge Farm right now, other than, again, another Danville area school along with Westville. But Beardstown, again, 7-2. They got that a little bit of a playoff experience last year on the road. This time they're at home, so I think I like Beardstown's chances playing at home.
256 are in now. They'll be trimmed in half. When we come back and talk next week, go to www.sgr.com on Friday and Saturday to get all the playoff scores and matchups, and then we'll come back and talk more about them next week.